Hello and welcome to Nick's Allotment Diary. Today I'm going to be planting some potatoes in buckets. I've grown potatoes in buckets before with reasonable success. The one thing you need to make sure you do if you're growing potatoes in buckets or containers is to make sure that they're well watered, because otherwise you can get small quantities of potatoes. This is a 30 litre bucket, and what I've done is I've put some compost in the bottom, probably about 2 or 3 inches of compost at the bottom. And now I'm going to plant a variety called Allotment. This is a first early potato, so they'll grow and produce new type potatoes in about 12 weeks, something like 100 days plus. You should be able to turn these out and get some potatoes. I'm going to put 3 potatoes in each bucket. I've chitted these so you can see the shoots are starting to sprout. You don't need to do that, but at this time of the year these potatoes will obviously have sprouted. You can put potatoes in much earlier than this, but I tend to put them in a little bit later so I can avoid frost, which we can get in this area up until middle to the end of May. I'll be putting 3 potatoes in this bucket. They're quite big ones. You can get away with probably 2, to be honest, but I've got plenty, so 3 in this bucket. We'll see what quantity of potatoes we get. The next thing I'm going to do is just cover potatoes over with some compost. This is fresh compost, but you can reuse compost from last year. Just cover them over, and then I'm going to add some fish blood and bone to the compost. That'll give it some extra feed. That's particularly important if you're not using fresh compost, if you're using compost you've used before, because it will have used up a lot of the nutrients last year. Top it up a bit more, fish blood and bone. Can use any other type of fertiliser, but this one's a good general one. I like to then top the bucket up to nearly the top. You can just cover the potatoes and let the shoots come through, and then top up some more compost, and then let the shoots emerge again and put more compost on the top, but there's no need to do that. The potatoes will head towards the light, and all we need to do is give the bucket a good water and place it somewhere where it's going to get a good amount of light and the potatoes will grow well. If the foliage of the potatoes starts to emerge from the surface of the soil and there is frost forecast, the best thing to do is put a piece of fleece over the top to protect the new growth. Otherwise you will get frost burn on the leaves and it will knock the plants back a bit. Probably won't kill them, but well worth protecting them if there is any frost due. In addition to the buckets, I managed to get hold of some of these woven black bags. They're not as big as the buckets, probably about 15 litres of compost in them, so they're not going to hold as much compost and therefore produce less potatoes. but they're worth giving a try this year, I think. Now I've got some potatoes that are Desiree. They're a main crop potato, red skin. I was given these from a local garden centre who's closed down due to the current situation, and they were giving away a lot of their stock that they knew they wouldn't be able to sell, so they provided them to local groups like our Allotment group and various nursing and care homes. So I've got a few of these potatoes. They have started to chip in the bag, got quite long chips on them. I'm going to put 3 of these in this bag. They're smaller potatoes. Put them down towards the bottom. You don't tend to get potatoes growing below the level of the seed potato, so you need to place them quite near the bottom of the bucket or bag, because the potatoes will form above the seed potato. I'll just cover them with some compost now. So just a bit of compost over the top, and like with the others, some fish blood and bone mixed in to give plenty of food for the potatoes. Top it up with a bit more compost, a little bit more, doesn't need loads of this because there should be some food in the compost already, with it being a new bag. Mix it all in, and a little bit more, top it up to near the top, because this is not as big as the buckets. So I'll just stick a label in to remind me what type of potato it is, and again I'll give them a good water. The last variety that I'm going to show you me planting today is a variety called Vivaldi. These are a second early potato, so they'll grow and produce spuds in about 15 weeks, something like that. So just over 4 months, say 3 to 4 months. These are a variety that do produce good potatoes, I believe. Excellent for roasting, chips, and even jacket potatoes. So these have started to chit. Again, I'll put 3 of them in this cloth bag. Down near the bottom, shoots pointing up towards the top, but it doesn't really matter because the potatoes will find their own way. Cover them again with a little bit more compost and some fish blood and bone fertiliser. Give them a good feed. And a little bit more. There we go. They should be fine in there. I'll put them with the others. I'm going to grow the majority of my potatoes in buckets at home this year, where I can keep an eye on them and keep them well watered. One of the problems is having them up at the allotment is being able to get up here to water all the time. You even have to water when it's rained, sometimes because the foliage stops the water running down into the bucket. You do need to give them a good soak. We'll be growing some potatoes up at the allotment, but they'll be grown in the ground. I'm going to plant a few different rows of potatoes and let them do their own thing, fend for themselves, and hopefully should get some decent spuds later in the season. Thanks very much for joining me at Nick's Allotment. I'll see you again next time.